The next stitch I'm demonstrating is the back stitch. The back stitch not only goes forward in motion, but also comes backward as well. It's a little bit more complicated than some of our previous stitches, and it takes a little bit more patience and time to complete, but it is a very secure stitch. So with the back stitch, I'm going to sink my needle and come right out again. Again, I'm stitching underneath the fabric here. Pull until it's flat and my needle is at the base of the fabric. Then I will go back half the length of what I just stitched to insert my needle again. And then underneath, I am stitching the original length that I did the first time. Pull until that is flat. Then I will come backward again, half the length of the stitch underneath, which should just meet what you see there on top and underneath the full amount. Pull backward until it touches underneath the full amount. And you can kind of gauge if your stitches are the right length and you are making them even if where your thread comes out here on top is halfway in between where your needle is underneath that fabric. Again, this is a very sturdy stitch. If you make this small and you pull it very flat, not too tight, again, we don't want our fabric to pucker, but we want it to be flat so the threads are not loose. It can be a very sturdy, strong construction stitch, whereas some of these stitches, the running stitch, the basting stitch, are very much temporary stitches and are not meant to stay. Again, this takes time and patience to go a significant length. So give yourself time to do that. Try to make them as even as possible and pull flat each time. Let's show you what it looks like on the back. You can see on the top that is a little continuous line with barely any spaces. I got a little bit more space between that one than I did the other ones. But on the back, you can see how the thread has gone forward and looped back and gone forward and looped back. So you can see that it's doubling back on itself each time you stitch. Obviously, much less pretty than the front side. And if you should be close to running out of thread, you always want to make sure that you have several inches of thread before you decide you're done with the stitch. Even if you don't make it to the opposite side of your fabric, that's okay. Take a pause. Go ahead and tie a knot. So tying a knot is to grab that little tiny bit of fabric right where the thread had exited before. Pull until your loop forms and go ahead and grab onto that loop so you don't lose it. Put your needle in the loop and wrap it around the edge like that. And then pull, pull, pull until your thread has created that knot on the surface of the fabric. Go ahead and clip it. And then you can always create a new knot with a new piece of thread. You need to get more thread and start your stitch again. It's actually a good idea if you're going a significant length to stop and start when you need to. Will create a much stronger stitch instead of one continuous thread with fewer knots. So if I were continuing this, I would insert my needle back here where that stitch started and then continue on my way. again. And I can just keep proceeding as I need to.